Well, good afternoon. Thank you for being here today. I was asked about a week and a half ago if I could do a presentation when we had a bunch of folks that were bailing on us, and I said, I'm sure I can work something up. And I went to all of my old presentations and realized I really didn't have anything that fit. So I went and I kind of made a new presentation, and hopefully it'll fit this audience and it'll give you some idea of how actually in Alaska we're in our infancy in dealing with invasive weeds and other species. So, I'm learning more in this last few days than I do, and that I'm going to be able to portray. So I'm just going to go through this. I did come up with some pictures so you guys can see some of the landscapes and the areas where we've been out. So it'll give you some idea of where we come from. And you'll probably notice Scott in some of these pictures who's sitting up front because he's the guy that hired me and got me out of these rivers here about 5 years ago. Okay, I'm with the Division of Mining, Land, and Water in the state of Alaska's Department of Natural Resources. I was the navigability subunit manager for about 4.5 years, so I got to run all rivers. And about 5 months ago, I got promoted up to be a water resources section chief. So now, instead of leading the charge, I'm going to go along. So this is going to be a lot of fun, but this is kind of where we are in a department. We have mining and water and all kinds of different parts of our different divisions in our organization. To start, I kind of want to point out the size of Alaska. I mean, we're talking about some areas you're all working in, and it seems to be fairly large. Put it into perspective. The state of Alaska goes and superimposes over from down like to Florida up to Maine and across the entire United States. So we have 4 temperate zones and our own time zone. So it's a pretty big place. As you can see in Alaska, we have a fairly small road system. So what I want to talk about is you come in from Canada, you can come down to the main rail. We have going up to the North Slope. So this is our road system. It's pretty limited, just right here in the center of the state going over to Canada. So keeping that in mind, this is our access. So while you have a really defined transportation network in the lower 48, as we call it, we have a limited system. We're pretty much on track. And so you think, well, in Alaska, that's no big deal. I mean, you just stay on the roadway system and you got your problem taken care of. Well, part of that is, when you look at the state of Alaska, 43% of the state is wetlands. We have over 3 million lakes that are greater than 1 acre, and up to 15 million miles of potentially navigable waterways. The reason why I use potentially is that was the Army Corps of Engineers guy's speech last Thursday, and we negotiate on what's a navigable waterway. So there's a lot of water in the state of Alaska. So, in Alaska, about 5 years ago, they started realizing, hey, I think we have a little problem starting to develop here. So, our Division of Agriculture, Alaska Plant Material Center, was tasked with taking this problem on. And so, well, first you have to define what your problem is. And so, the invasive species were recognized as non-native species that once introduced accidentally or on purpose, spread beyond the control to affect natural or agricultural resources human health. The classic example in Alaska, it started years ago when I was a kid in the standing lines. We have dandelions across the entire state of Alaska. And some guy around the turn of the century wanted dandelion one, brought 13 plants. Out of 13 plants, I guarantee you, we got them by the quadruple fold. It's amazing. You got them everywhere. So, I mean, growing up as a homestead kid and watching this, I mean, it's from experience. You kind of get to see how this happens. So, where are we at? Well, we're lucky. As you guys can see, most of our problems, we're down here. We're still here. We're not up where we've been talking about control management. We're down in introduction and detection phase, and that's what we're going to really try to do is get ahead and stay ahead. So, believe it or not, we've already been out there doing some studies. This is a study of the Kenai Peninsula, one of the main areas in south central Alaska. And you can see You probably recognize some of the names here on the chart. Well, guess where they came from? I can almost guarantee you that a lot of them rode trucks through Canada. And that was what I was thinking about until a few years back, we're out on a river in the middle of nowhere, and I'm looking at a plant going, what's happening here? We started realizing that our road systems cross all of our river systems. And so instead of thinking that now we're going to have to go and deal with a system that has a pretty finite number, we now have a number of infinite systems. So, we are trying in Alaska to deal with this. But if you look here, you've got a Juneau Weed Management Association. That's down southeast, small area. You have the Kenai Peninsula. That's a small area. Anchorage, it's a pretty big town, but a small area. And Fairbanks, another metropolitan area. But what you're seeing is these are very small areas that people are really focused on the problem. And so what's going to happen in the rest of the state becomes my next question. So, anyway, we have set up, and you see that there's general menu of priorities. I just picked the one from the Kenai Peninsula Weed Management Area. And they have all the right ideas, and you can see there's the prevention and eradication, and they say treat the transportation corridors. I don't think they mean what I mean when they say transportation corridors. And a lot of it is, well, if we can get to the roadways, we can deal with that. And what is going to be interesting is where we're going to have the funds and how we're going to establish resources to go. Because one of the presentations earlier said be very thorough. The state itself, Alaska, our department is 100 million acres. And we're, not the largest landowner in the state. The feds have twice that. Private's about the same. So, we're talking a huge amount of work to try to stay ahead of this. So, I was looking, and sure enough, I was able to find where we do have some different species already identified. This is on Kodiak Island, which is an island about 60 miles from Homer, down from Anchorage, south central Alaska. You'd think islands, well, that'd be the last place we're dealing with it. No, it's been an agricultural community for years, and I wouldn't doubt that it was brought in with animals or feed or something along those lines. That's speculation on my part, but if you notice where we have the Canada thistle problem, it's starting from the seeds and the hay that have been brought out and put out on the field, so it's a problem. I'm trying to figure out where this picture is. I'm guessing it's at the head of the Catchback Bay. I'm not sure. But here you have a system where you have white sweet clover. I was kind of unaware of this one, so I learned something about my research too. So that gives you just a little bit of a perspective of where the problem is, where we're just starting to identify the problem. And I guarantee you that the attention is starting to become more and more clear. One of the interesting reasons, and you always get the good and the bad, the tsunami debris has already shown up in Alaska. Surprised everybody. It beat it over there 6 months earlier than planned. The bad news is it came with a whole bunch of critters and plants attached to it. So we've had infestations of Japanese kelp and things in southeast Alaska and on the Oregon coast already. So we haven't even been thinking about dealing with seaborne invasives, and now all of a sudden we're dealing with that problem as well as your upland and the marine species. So, Fish and Game, very proactive. A couple of years ago, they started realizing we had a whole lot of people tramping all over the state in felt boots. And they started realizing maybe we're carrying a lot of bad stuff around our felt boots. So I got a brand new pair of really good felt boots sitting at home that I'm not using. But I realized that, I could have been one of those guys tramping stuff, jumping in the helicopter, going 300 miles, jumping in the next lake or river. And boy, I would really feel bad if I was doing that. So they came and they have actually outlawed the absorbent felt, and then they have come up and they have really already got out there and they're trying to let our anglers know that you need to clean, you need to drain, dry, decontaminate. You guys know all of this stuff. but it's new. It is not something that the people in Alaska had even to think about. Like, yeah, right. It's not our problem. Well, it's becoming more and more our problem. So you think, well, in Alaska, really, how much access and how far do you get? So I went and pulled a few pictures, and I thought I'd just run through some pictures and tell you a few stories, and hopefully it'll give you a little understanding of Alaska and some of the things we do. We have a little river called the Jewett that is on the other side of the inlet, down by a place called Ionic. And we have a lot of conflict. It's a great king fisheries, summer fisheries, and we have a local native village, and we have other people. There's a little conflict on the use of the river. So we decided to solve some of that conflict. So I got to fly in with the troopers and their super cub over. And so we were going around, and I got over there and I was surprised, man. We got a great road. We're driving out through the Doolies. You see no license plate. I asked the trooper, he says, no, we're off the road system. No license plate's required. Well, we're that far out there. So that gives you a little idea. You have a great road, people are running around. And then what do you see? Well, this is the right-of-way access. That because of the conflict, they had to build. So now what do? They lead back down through a real swampy area. The good news is when I was there, I didn't see anything non-native there. But when I go and I see what everybody's doing here, I mean, the red flags go up because there was no really any vegetation plan. And all these little tracks you see there are four-wheeler tracks. So we got people driving their little buggies and driving down to the Tulies. And with the more and more native lands being private, and more and more private people locking people into transportation corridors, now we have more and more problems with overuse of specific areas because people are getting funded. So we have, believe it or not, we're starting to have capacity issues or use issues, not because we don't have enough room, but because of policies that we've got people focused into certain areas. So the good news is these will be the areas that will be easier to watch. The bad news is sometimes you get a little bit of degradation here and where we don't like to see. So this is going towards the Wrangell. You're looking at the Wrangell St. Elias National Park. This is a place close to a little town called Chittenden. So you drive along, you get a nice, great highway, and then you go on out into a pretty much gravel road, and then you're going up into the park, and we're off out into the Tulies. And so now you see your roads going down, and then what do you do? Here's my point. You're driving out, you're going through, and you're coming across a stream. So you're going to do a stream crossing. So when you start looking at it from an invasive species point of view, you start realizing maybe we're going to need to start paying a little more attention to what we're going to do in the future. This is perfectly legitimate. In Alaska, it's an anadromous stream. You have to have a permit crossing. This is up in an area that doesn't, so there's really no requirement for a permit. So this is actually a service road. So that the Park Service puts people on. This is a great little trail. A few years ago, you probably saw a picture of the management side of the front. This is myself and our riparian surveyor going down the Katsina River. That is just right off and down below the picture you saw below. So you go down, if you wanted to, you'd follow that little road, you come out, you get on the Katsina River, and you'd be coming down the river. So what I'm trying to portray is the fact that we really, believe it or not, have an interconnected system. It's just not a road system. It's a transportation system that is a lot bigger. It's going to be a lot more dynamic, and we're going to have to figure out how we're going to deal with it. They asked me to put some pretty pictures in, so that's what I have here. Is hopefully some pictures that you guys like. So moving forward back into South Central, this is the Little Sioux. This is a river that has a lot of angler use. You have people coming up and down this river. They're rafting down, they're running jet boats up. In fact, you kind of have to be careful you don't run into each other in this river. This is in the wintertime. We're checking out. And so, believe it or not, we're standing in the water. There's some spent reds that are sort of right there around our feet. So this is a very popular salmon river. And just above there, you're in the road system. So here you are. You're connected with your major river systems and your roadways. South Central Alaska, that is just pretty much it's a common. We just go roads across rivers and swamps and everything else, all kinds of different habitats. So sure enough, this is down the river about 5 miles. There's one of your crossings. So you're just going to have this continual cross transportation in that. So you can see it's an interesting change in environments. This I just had to throw in. This is a picture of Lake Lucille. Got kind of famous when we had a lady that ran for vice president. She lives down here on the left. So just kind of a picture of where she came from. So this is up at 20 Mile. This is up in the Chugach Park. This is a river management trip. We went out and we wanted to see what things were like and coming down. So you're going up. This is where you're basically moving in and coming back down. So we went up. This is on the Placer, the head of the Placer. We went up there. We took another trip. We were looking at the rivers and the systems there to see what they were. This is up at Devil's Canyon. A lot of people have heard about the Susitna-Watana Dam that's going in, and a lot of work in that area. This is at the bottom of the canyon. You can't go through it. Well, 2 people have, and they're crazy, and they only went one way. And very small, very powerful boats. Picture was taken off of the Hayes boat. You can actually take a commercial trip and go up the river and take a look see at this. This is where he sticks the nose in. Pretty impressive waterflow there. That was about a 6-foot wall of water. I wouldn't want to be coming down through it. It was pretty impressive. We went back up the river and then came down the Sioux. This is a picture of the river just below that. This is how it smooths out. Had a beautiful 2-day trip. That was our river Alaska chapter trip last year, coming down that river. Then you move down to southeast. This is a picture Scott took of the river, showing the dynamics. And what you have here is a river with a road that leads up into Canada. So we're talking a river that's an international a river that starts in Canada, comes through. It's an international treaty river. And so not only are we dealing with the national issues, we also are dealing with international issues. And some days those get a little interesting when we're having to negotiate with Canada on some of these. Believe it or not, this is just around the corner. This is Dyea Bay. So you go from a river environment to where you're out in the beautiful sea shore. So, you're transporting and moving in very short orders to different ecosystems. So that was a gorgeous day. Last summer we were up in, this is in interior Alaska, a little lake called L Lake. We flew in. So another mode of transportation that we have to be concerned about, we have float planes going all over the state. Just a beautiful day. We brought our team in, we unloaded. So there it was. We were all loaded up in our gear, and here goes our plane. So, people in Alaska, we don't drive, we usually fly or boat, do things like that. So I'm trying to point out it's a different frame of reference for what we do, how big it is, how we move around. And so, I get pretty excited about the little weed raft because that's something we're going to have. We're even talking about moving around to look at things. Coming down the river, we had a team. We had 4 boats on the river. We had camp. Beautiful little weather. So we had great sandy beaches to camp on. But that's not always the case. Sometimes you have to go a little higher. So it just shows you how the rivers come down through. This is a river coming down. And sure enough, down at the bottom, we're back to a root system. So this is where we went up and came in. So with that, the nation, there's a picture of Scott. We get out there pretty early and see the ice. So all times of the year, early, late, around. That was just a little further down the river. You can see just beautiful countryside. And this is pretty well pristine. There wasn't any invasives up in here. But we were up at the edge of water starting out of Canada. This is down in around Fairbanks. So you see you have railroad projects, huge rivers, Tanana River. So we're going to be looking at putting in new construction. That's going to be a whole new thing. We went from designing to where you build bridges that will impact the environment and crossings, where we've got them to make it easier cities to be around there. Finally, down to South Central. This is across the inlet. This is little streams that people go out and go fishing and run around. So with that, back to winter. People are still running around messing on the rivers. It's just frozen. So now we're snow machining. We're working, and this is just off a road system in Connect. Out to the Kuskokwim, people, they just live on boats. So you're in a village, you're out there, you're moving around in boats. We have four-wheelers, we have trails. This is a village called Kidnap. And then you can see that there's just literally transportation is by boats. Water world out there. Back to Bethel, we fly in, so you're in a place to where it's air and it's water transportation. There are just cars in this town, and that's it. Unless you go out the winter and you drive on the roads. To finish, this is why I live in Alaska. Believe it or not, this is out my back door. This is what I found next spring. So it's a pretty cool place to live. So if you get a chance, come visit us, and you'll see a beautiful state. So thank you.